it's not about how do I, save money by not spending it on the things I enjoy, like that latte, or maybe like, a car or whatever. It's about how do I, buy assets that are going to be cash flow producing so I can have more of the things that I love in my life. And that to me, I was like, this makes sense. This is the path. And so that was like the Bible to me. I probably read that like 5 times throughout college. And so I always knew, okay, start a business. So my goal was to start a business so I can afford to buy real estate.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Weiss Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Weiss Advice. I am your host, Yona Weiss. It is a pleasure to be here today with Charlie Ansanelli, who is someone who I think everyone, including myself, is going to be, intrigued by. And, after ending this episode, I know even before talking to him that I'm going to want to know more about him just because that's the feeling I have right now. So I'm just sharing with you what that is, a little bit about him. He is a college dropout, okay? Retired by the age of 32 because he was a successful entrepreneur, investor, angel investor, several businesses. Now he's a real estate investor as well. And he's still going. So even though he retired, but he's obviously still going and making things happen. He's a dad and he's an amateur home chef, which I'm also an amateur home chef. Not really amateur, but I like to cook. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. And he's a mentor and advisor, which anyone with that type of background is someone that you might want to learn from. So I'm excited to speak with you, Charlie. How you doing today?
Well, thank you, Yona. That's quite the intro, and I will try and live up to an ounce of that during this conversation. I'm doing great. Sunny here in Sonoma County, California. A beautiful summer starting to come around. Obviously, it's a very tough time for a lot of people right now, and that's not lost on me. On the one hand, I feel like I'm doing very well, and that's there's a guilt and a moral thing around that where I'm honestly kind of struggling. I know I've gotten here by hard work and everything, and obviously not everything is equal. So I realize all that, and it's anyways. Sorry, kind of a roundabout way of saying I'm doing really well, but it just feels kind of weird to say that right now. But life is good. Life is good, and if I can help others with their life anytime I can, that's what I would like to do. That's why I'm here on your podcast. That's why I'm here. If I can share any information, because I'm retired technically, which is a weird thing to say. I'm still working every day because I love to be a part of the world. I love pushing things to the limit, but I did not really come from money, and I came from a lot of hard times myself, and so I just feel like if I can help anybody else sort of achieve that and unveil that process that I took, that's something I'm always happy to do.
Yeah. And, it's really important. Obviously, we are living in very challenging times right now. There's a lot going on in the world, in the U.S. especially. I mean, this episode is going to air a little bit later, but if you go back to, the beginning of June, which when we're recording this, obviously, there's a lot going on. But I want to focus on, and I always try to focus on the good. And there's so much positivity. There's so much good that's happening in the world and in our own lives. And you have a choice every day to focus, what are you going to focus on? And a lot of people like to make the cliche of, you look at the glass, is it half full or is it half empty? But I have a good friend who always likes to say, no, it's neither. It's actually, when you look at a glass that's either half full, it's really totally full. Totally full, because the other half, it's water, but the other half is filled with air. And it's just a matter of your perspective and how you look at things. So if you see that everything is always full, you may not perceive it in the same way or the same, quote unquote good that you may define as good. But when you see that everything happens for a reason and there's, always outcomes that can be positive and be good from this, then even in the toughest times, they in themselves, without downplaying the suffering and the trouble, but there can be, a lot of good in there as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think that that's one of the biggest things, and one of the things I constantly talk to my wife about this too. I don't watch the news. I don't. And lately when the whole coronavirus thing happened, and then of course what's happening right now, I'll find myself wanting to know what's going on. I'll turn back on the TV. I'll start watching the news, and I immediately see how it affects me negatively. How the emotions, because it's designed around fear, it's designed around clicks, it's designed around ratings. It's not designed around solutions. That's for sure.
For sure.
Or positivity.
And usually not a lot of truth either, unfortunately.
And usually not a lot of truth, right? Because fear sells. And so if you find yourself, being consumed by media, by news, I don't even consider the news, it's media, then it's going to take up so much of your mind share, and you only have so much. You only have so much time in this life. You only have so much energy. And there's only so much you can do with that as far as those being resources. And so where you put that attention, where you put that time, that's up to us. And I'm a big believer in that. And so I focus on what I can control every day in my actions.
Yeah.
And the opportunities that I think I like to see opportunities. I see all problems as opportunities. I like to find solutions every single day. I wake up to do that. That makes me really excited.
So let's talk what, how did you start out in your, career that you later retired by, or what was kind of the process of that? Not have to give me the whole history, but kind of in a nutshell. I know you told me you had some media company and some event production, something going on, but just talk a little bit about that and how that transitioned into, where you are today.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, let's see. My parents were entrepreneurs. I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. They had some really good years, and then a drought of really bad years. So I had this very kind of weird childhood where I felt like we were rich, and then I felt like we were really, really poor, and we had no money for a long time. And so I grew up in sort of this very interesting contrast. And then I knew my parents were struggling, and I knew life was really, really hard, and I had little brothers and sisters. And so I chose to go to college locally. College, looking back, wasn't a very fun experience for me. I mean, I had great times, but I could see my friends who were able to have a good time and let loose and party. And for me, I was very, very concerned with how are my parents, how's my family going to eat? How are they going to survive? And how can I, be a success myself? So if it came to it, I could help them. So I was very determined in college, and I ended up, through my networking in college, I got a job at a startup. It was a travel startup, online travel startup, and it was just a great experience. I was working with people who have been there, done that. I had this huge desire to be a tech entrepreneur, but I was almost illiterate in tech. I just had pure just motivation. Mm-hmm. And of course, along the way, I felt like I didn't belong there at the startup. I felt like I was a fraud. But I think we all feel that no matter what. If we're pushing and challenging ourselves into something new, you're gonna feel inadequate always. And I've learned that, and that's kind of helped me throughout. Is okay, if I'm not feeling inadequate, and I'm not feeling scared, I'm not doing something right. I'm right. Complacent. I'm being not challenging myself. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so I started that startup. And learned a ton. I ended up from there dropping out of college, which my parents were not fans of. I think having such tough times as entrepreneurs themselves, they really wanted me to go to college and get a job. And I understand where that came from. They meant well, but I couldn't help it. I just was like, once you start thinking entrepreneurially, the world changes for you, and that's just how you see things. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up starting my own startup. It was called Park Please. It was the Airbnb of parking spaces. Oh, wow. And I was in my young 20s. I just bootstrapping, credit card debt, trying to rally anybody who would work on it with me, you name it. And it was very exciting. We launched that. We got a lot of press. I was in the big TechCrunch articles. I was in Fast Company, all the magazines and stuff. And people thought I was rich and I made it. Little did they know I still had $50,000 student loan debt, $50,000 on my credit cards. And what I didn't realize at the time, being in my young 20s, is that making the headlines doesn't make your business successful.
Yeah, this is about food on your table.
Totally, and revenue and profit matters. So I didn't know how to raise a lot of money. I raised some, and we did okay. I mean, that I just looking back, I mean, it's easy to sort of see where I went wrong now, but I'm also proud of what I was able to accomplish at that young age too. And I think, it's good to be critical on yourself, but as long as you're meeting that with sort of, being proud of what you've done as well, it's important to have a balance. So ended up selling that company, was fortunate to find a buyer, someone who was growing, spot here out of Chicago. And I paid back the investors, but I didn't make any money out of that. I just kind of made social currency. I made a lot of connections, got to know a lot of really smart people, did a lot of really interesting things. And I was around sort of this network now that I had wanted to be a part of. My parents at the time were launching a flea market, and I had helped them do this. I was helping them on the side launch this. And this, God bless my parents. They're my role models. I'm just so lucky to have fantastic humans as parents. Even in hard times, they made sure we never felt it. There was a roof over our head. There was food being served. And they just, fantastic, hardworking people. So they were hustling hard to start a flea market. And this was a Hail Mary pass for my parents. This was their one last attempt at, having any kind of income for them because they're unemployable. They're high school, educated, no college. And being entrepreneurs for 30 years of your life doesn't really look that great on a resume for a job.
Yeah.
So they were unemployable but very smart people, very, hustlers. They started this flea market and I saw the potential of what it could be. And I had some time and I knew they needed help. And so I just dedicated, I thought I'd come in, roll up the sleeves, kind of consult them for a little bit, get them on the right board for the marketing and the process and technology and things that just wasn't in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I ended up just really, really loving it because instead of tech where everything was sort of behind the screen, I was, in this world I never knew, but, I could figure it out. And I was able to sort of see this event come together once a month. And there was something so tangible about that experience that I really, really loved. I could see people, I could see the vendors selling, I could see the commerce happening, the memories being made, children and families having fun. And I just really, really liked that. It was different. And so we ended up, my parents and I becoming partners on that business. And I kind of took over the role as the CEO, by proxy of the fact that I was just younger and they worked their, butts off forever. And it was my gift and my pleasure to be able to do that.
Right.
And I've grown that business with them over the last 8 to 9 years. Into a very big local festival down in San Francisco Bay Area called Treasure Fest. And it hosts hundreds of local makers and collectors and designers and artists once a month with tens of thousands of attendees. We've grown it into live music now and food trucks and bars and entertainment. And it's a whole thing. And that's been a really, really rewarding experience. But none of what I just told you allowed me to retire. All I was doing this whole time was just, in the beginning was just getting myself into debt, building a network, right?
Yeah.
And then, kind of joining and growing and starting this business with my parents, right? So that allowed me to make some revenue. Didn't make me a millionaire. Didn't make me, wealthy. It just made me have a lifestyle I enjoy working, on something I really liked.
Yeah.
I made a job for myself. And so I've always known that I wanted freedom, right? Freedom is I think, just like I never wanted a boss. I've worked since I was 14 years old, since I could legally work. I've had bosses, for most of my life, up until, I was in my young 20s. And my goal was just to never have a boss, make my own decisions. I didn't care if I had to, be on a beach, renting surfboards somewhere, making no money, or, making millions of dollars doing something else. I had to have that kind of control that my destiny and my time and freedom. And I always knew that the path to sort of accomplish this was to start businesses, because businesses is a way to capture a lot of value at one time, right? That essentially, when you start a business, it allows you to remove the equation of the amount that I earn is based on the time that I spend. And you can, so you can capture a lot of value at one time. That's what a business does. But a business, it's very hard to get that sort of long-term wealth and that long-term passive income from a business. as any business owner will tell you. And there's paths to that. Some businesses can't allow that, but the most is very, very difficult, especially a festival business. So around the time of when I was so my goal was to start businesses and then buy real estate.
Okay, so you got that real estate bug at a certain point. We realized that
I had that since I was 15, probably.
Really?
Yeah. When I was 14, I started reading my first books on financial freedom. I remember the first book I read was David Bach's Automatic Millionaire at age 14. I was working as a lifeguard. Probably shouldn't have been reading. Probably shouldn't have watched in the pool. But when the bosses weren't looking, I was reading a book. The pool was empty. And so if you ever read David Bach's Automatic Millionaire, it's a great starter book as far as I think, thinking about long term and thinking about how you can escape the rat race, quote unquote. It taught me at a young age the power of saving, but not just saving, but compound interest investing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The idea of living below your means to invest in yourself and in the future. Those are all very powerful things. I found myself at the age of 14, 15, 16, trying to, save $1, $5 here and there. But it wasn't until I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in college where my mind was that was I was like, whoa, this makes sense. It's not about how do I, save money by not spending it on the things I enjoy, like that latte, or maybe a car or whatever.
Yeah.
It's about how do I, buy assets that are going to be cash flow producing so I can have more of the things that I love in my life. And that to me, I was like, this makes sense. This is the path. And so that was the Bible to me. I probably read that 5 times throughout college. And so I always knew, okay, start a business. So my goal was to start a business so I can afford to buy real estate.
Right.
And so I was around 26 years old. This only goes back 6 years ago, by the way. I had saved some money where I was in a position where I was just having my first kid. It was just a total surprise. And I wasn't planning on it, but that's what life's about. You rise to the occasion. And so I was just having my first kid. Life kind of got really serious all of a sudden. I couldn't afford to sort of, just have ambition with no plan. I had to have a real plan. Things in this life, in this world, were becoming much more important to me. And so I had saved over a few years, $120,000, which depends on who you talk to. In the Bay Area here in California, it's not that much money.
Not much money.
It's not much here. And I had this choice of buying a home or buying an investment property. And most people would tell you, well, buy a home, young man, it's safe and buy a home and, you're going to start paying it off. But I remember, from my learnings of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and, I found that model of what he was telling me. And I was like, I'm going to follow this model. And one of there's another quote that kind of goes in line with it that I love. And I think Sam Zell said it, which is when everyone else is looking left, look right. I'm paraphrasing. I kind of forget. Yeah. Something about that. And I think that's so important. A conventional life, conventional wisdom will lead to a conventional life. And if you look at where conventional life takes most people, it's not a place that they're typically thrilled about, and they're always looking for alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
And so
that's right.
So I ended up not buying a house. I just stayed a renter for a long time in a place that was below our means. I was the bottom floor of a duplex. I ended up buying a 31 pad mobile home park in Tucson, 2017, pulled the trigger on one. And of course, mobile home parks are now becoming, the darling of real estate. But in 2017, everyone thought I was crazy and didn't understand what I was doing. So first they thought I was crazy for dropping out of college, and then they thought I was crazy for buying a mobile home park. And that mobile home park ended up paying my rent and then some every single month. So after that was happening for a while, I was like, okay, great. Now I can buy a home. I'll save some more money, right? I did that for a few more years. Bought a home. This home you're seeing now, this is my office gym location. And the with the idea that the real estate, is going to pay my mortgage every single month.
Right.
And that happened. I since have sold that community in Tucson, and I now own about 300 units throughout the Midwest and the Rust Belt, and still growing. So yeah.
And all that, and that income, and those income producing properties like you're talking about, the mobile home park, and are, like you said, paying for your mortgage, okay, paying for your bills, paying for, putting money in your pocket and growing that so you can reinvest more money and more time.
Yep, all the above, exactly. It's housing is a need that's not going to go away.
Right.
Affordable housing is only going to continue to grow as a demand in this country. And so I feel very, very good about it as a long-term investment. And it's something I really enjoy. I really enjoy real estate. It kind of combines a lot of the best of both worlds to me. I mean, I think you can be really, really good at real estate by using technology and being on sort of the cutting edge of using software and technology to manage and grow the business, because there's a business behind the real estate.
Sure.
So it's got that entrepreneurial business part to it, which I love. But I also really love providing housing and seeing communities transform, seeing tenants be proud to, have the housing options that they do, community that they live in.
Yeah.
So it has sort of that tangible aspect, which the festival business gave me, that I really enjoyed.
That's really interesting, because a lot of people think, especially talk about the media and the kind of portrayal of, putting fear and things. They'll portray real estate as, slumlords and these kind of things, landlords. And so some people have this image of mobile home parks, especially. It's like to be honest, there are plenty of those people out there, unfortunately, that give it a bad name. And so someone like you and many others who we've not only had on the show, but a lot of people that we know that invest in these types of assets specifically and do a lot of work to try to turn things around and create a sense of community and add value to those people's lives. I literally just spoke to someone last week who was asking me about mobile home parks, and he heard a guy who's in North Carolina, and he's been in the real estate business for 35 years. And he's like, someone's been telling me about mobile home parks. And like you said, now it's like the darling of real estate, right? He's like, I don't want to buy those though. He was trying to talk to me like, why should I do that? He heard from someone that depreciation, is through the roof and the tax benefits through the roof. But he's asking me like, why would I do that? I don't want to become a slumlord. Like, I don't want to have these type of properties. And I was trying to explain to him, there are plenty of people out there who actually, take these communities and turn them around. Yeah, you may buy something that's totally run down, right? But if you can go in there and, redo things, pave the roads, add the landscaping, put the houses or the homes, give them a sense of feeling of community where you can, that's tremendous. That's incredible. And I think it's amazing that that's what you're doing, because
there seems to be this really unfair narrative that if you're investing in affordable housing, you're taking advantage of poor people. And I don't understand where that comes from. Maybe it's because people have this idea that life is always a win-lose. So if you're going to be a landlord, take advantage of the middle class. I don't understand where that comes from. I really, truly believe in the world of business being a win-win. Business should be at its best. It should be, capturing value by providing value.
Yeah.
And it's not like my tenants don't have options. I mean, they can live in a lot of places. I invest in places where they choose to live in my community. It's unfortunate because that narrative exists because I think it keeps a lot of money out of investing into the affordable housing space. And they're the ones who need it. I'm not running a nonprofit. I'm running a business and I need to make a living at it so I can keep doing this, so I can provide for my family and I can keep providing, value to the communities I'm buying and operating. To do that, I'm probably going to have to raise rents over, each year a little bit, right? I mean, but also I'm going to be improving the roads. I'm going to be making sure the landscaping is being done. I'm going to be paying a manager a reasonable salary at market value to make sure that the tenants are abiding by the rules and regulations so that the community is a nice place that people can take pride of ownership in. They can feel safe and proud to call home. So I think when there's the slumlording thing we're talking about, more times than not, it's actually the ma and pa owners. I find they are
unintentionally
unintentional
neglecting.
slumlords.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't want to raise the rents, right? They like, hey, I know the people here, I'm friends with all of them. I don't want to raise their rents. I don't have any debt on it anyway. I'm a mom. I've had it for 3 decades, 20 decades, or sorry, 2 decades, 20 decades. I'd be like a witch that owns that or something. And so they don't have any debt on it. They don't want to raise the rent. They don't want to ruffle feathers. And so what happens is then they don't improve the quality of the homes or the community or things that need to get done. And then the tenants know that they're getting a really, really good deal. And so they don't want to raise flags. They don't want to say things because they don't want the rents to get raised. And it creates over time a lot of rundown mobile home parks, which is what I've seen. And more times than not, those mobile home parks are too far beyond repair to fix, and they get redeveloped into apartments or condos or single family home subdivisions. Right. So I think that part of what goes into that unfair narrative about investing in affordable housing is the idea that you're going to raise rents on tenants. And yeah, you probably are because they've been kept down disproportionately for so long. Now, I mean, you're not going to go in day one and double the rents, but you're going to have to find a path to get it to reasonable so it can maintain and operate as an affordable housing option.
And you want to run a business and you want to run a profitable business. So it has to be done with the right metrics to make sure that you can get to the goals you need to, the milestones and the goals you need to get to over time. So obviously that makes sense.
And ultimately it's in everybody's favor too. I mean, they should want me to run a profitable business so that they can continue to live there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they can, like you said, enjoy the community they're living in. Yeah. I mean, yeah, this is awesome. I appreciate you sharing a lot of your story and your journey, which has really, in a lot of ways, just begun because, you're a young guy and you have a lot of potential and a lot ahead of you. And, God willing, you'll continue to grow and to buy more properties and do great things for the world. So you say you're an angel investor also. So that's kind of like that means a lot of things to a lot of people, but what does that mean to you?
So to me, and the angel investing part is kind of new over the last few years. The angel investing part is they're big swings. It's when you swing for the fences, right? I mean, real estate has a low floor. If you buy it right, you're not going to lose your shirt because there's your quantified value there, and it's a great way of building wealth over a long period of time. The angel investing is something I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to be at that table, to be a part of people who are working on really, really big ideas. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I mean, so real estate is gives me a lot of satisfaction in one part of my life, right? Providing housing. But there's a lot of people doing that. I'm not the only one doing that. Like that probably will get done without me. But to be a part of, one of the companies I've invested in, they're creating lab grown fish as an alternative to overfishing our oceans and seas, which is a big problem. And so they're looking in, they're truly developing really interesting ways of changing that, solving a really, really big problem by growing high quality, consistent lab grown fish. Does that sound gross to us right now? Sure. But 10 years from now, may that be the norm? And maybe we get better sushi from that because it's, we're getting the best quality consistently. I think so. I think that's the future, but that's just one example. And so being a small ticket, right, and something like that, that's exciting. Now I'm hands off on the angel investing. So, I don't get sort of a lot of the enjoyment I get when I run a business about being a part of it, actually solving the problems, but being a part of like those really big problems that people are solving and having a seat along to that is really exciting. When I get to mentor some of the startups, that's very exciting. I like doing that a lot, mentoring or advising.
Okay.
Just being able to sort of talk like we are right now
Sure.
about what's going on with the problems, or what are they facing, and how can we brainstorm around this. So that's a fun thing too.
That's cool. And it's one of the reasons why I love this podcast and this kind of platform. I can talk to so many different types of people doing many different things. The common denominator is usually has something to do with real estate. So that's what you might hear as a listener, that it keeps coming up again, and Rich Dad Poor Dad comes up almost every other episode because it is such a powerful book. And if you're listening to this and you're hearing this for the first time, tune into some other episodes also, and you'll hear this come up over and over again. And if you haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, do yourself a favor, go out and buy it. And I'll even put a link in the show notes here, make it easier for you to do that. But yeah, Charlie, I really appreciate you coming and sharing a little bit of your story, and allowing us to partake in this journey along with you in that sense. And what are some of the goals that you're working on? That you've kind of new goals that you have at this point since this whole COVID thing took over.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's actually something I'm really starting to think about right now. And my wife and I are having some of these discussions. I've always set sort of big goals when and just to give you an idea, I never set goals more than beyond 3 or 5 years. So to me, that's like my mind can't think that far.
Yeah.
So I set 3 to 5 year goals. And the purpose of the goal is to have something I'm working towards. And of course, that may take me a different direction, but you got to have something you're working towards every day, I believe. And so my goal when I was younger was to start a business, right? Did that. And after that, I was like, okay, let me actually then my goal was, okay, by the age of 30, I want to be quote unquote a millionaire, right? So that came around 30, a little after 30. And then my goal after 30 was, okay, by 40, I want to be in a position where I can retire. That came in 2 years. I just hit that goal this month, or like this year. So now I think my goal, and we're really talking about this, is going to be twofold. Is how can I continue? I want to continue doing what I'm doing, but also how can I now shift a little bit of my time here soon into giving back with more of my time, and what does that look like, and how and who am I going to do that with?
Yeah.
Because ultimately, money is just a tool, it's just a resource. I've been fortunate to kind of figure it out a little bit, and hey, you may talk to me a year from now, it might all be gone, but we will find out. It never ends. I live every day like it's going to be gone tomorrow. But I do feel like I'm able to figure it out, and I want to unveil that process. I want to say, hey, listen, I'm not that smart, I'm not that creative. I just found models that I followed along the way, and I just listened to those and executed on them. And I want to see how I can help maybe people who don't think that that's possible for them, or maybe they do when they're trying and they need help. And I think that there's something around that I want to figure out.
Sure. When you have, experience is obviously the best model, and you can share those experiences. I think it's really, really bold, noble of you. And it's something that everyone should do, giving back of time. I'm a strong believer in not only giving of your money, of your charity, is something I feel very, very strong, and not only from a kind of a religious obligation, giving 10% or more, 20% of your income or your money to charity to help others, but also 10% of your time. I think kind of tithing that as well is kind of a number that has kind of been brought up before. That why not do that? Help other people, see what you can do. And so I love doing that as well, and I think that's an awesome thing. I think everyone should. And if you know something and you can help someone, it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter at what level. You don't have to be, the most experienced person ever to help someone else, to give you your time. And just,
and I've struggled with that because I've always kind of felt like, who am I to be teaching or telling someone, but I think I'm kind of coming to terms with the fact of that's kind of, again, that's my inadequate voice speaking, and I really should try more.
Yeah. And that's okay. Again, like you said at the beginning, the imposter syndrome, right? Or that kind of feeling like, who am I to help other people or do this or teach other people? We all have something. I'm a firm believer in if you know ABCs, right, you can teach ABC. to someone else who doesn't know. And so whatever that point is in your life, that you're at, that you've accomplished something, you've overcome challenges. So someone who's struggling with those same challenges, you can help them through that. And everyone struggles with all kinds of challenges. We're all in this life, and it's a life full of challenges, and it's really a matter of how you see things and how you overcome things, and see opportunities as see challenges and opportunities. That's kind of how I see things. So I'd love to jump right into the final four, because we are our time unfortunately is limited today, Charlie. But I'd love to continue this conversation. Let's just jump into the final four. First question for you is, what is the worst job that you ever had? And it sounds like from your experience, you've had quite a few, and up into a certain age, right? But if you can remember back then, what would you say?
Yeah, I think the worst job I ever had was probably the best job I ever had, as far as a job, not as in my entrepreneurial chapters of my life, but it was probably that first job that I really, my first big boy job, which was working at the online travel startup. In the beginning, I was there feeling like a student, feeling like I didn't care about the money. I'm just here to learn. And then there was a pivot where I started to realize I cared about the paycheck. I cared about, I was scared of losing the job. And once I started to feel that, there was almost like I was depressed for a little while. I didn't understand why. And I came to understand, okay, it's because you need to just cut this loose. This is not who you are, and you need to take a big risk.
Wow, that's amazing. So it was really that kind of insight that you had from that experience.
Yeah. That was, it was the best and worst job at the same time. That makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. Total sense. So the second question is, what was a book that gave you a paradigm shift? And obviously we already spoke about Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I think you can think of another one.
Yeah. So Rich Dad Poor Dad really was, nothing has given me a bigger paradigm shift than Rich Dad Poor Dad. I will also just kind of say that I think what has helped me to even be open to a lot of that is, as a young kid, I really enjoyed reading biographies, whether it was on Larry Bird or Jane Goodall. I just loved learning about other people's lives who were interesting to me, and just always wanting to figure out, who were they as a kid? What things happened in their life that led them to become who they are?
Yeah.
Because I was always more interested in that than actually what they were doing when they were a fascinating person. I was more interested in what's that story from point A to point A, B, C, D, right? So just biographies in general. Yeah.
I totally agree with that. I was myself was a very big fan when I was a kid. Also, the Wayne Gretzky autobiography was my favorite book when I was
awesome.
When I was 12 years old. So that was, because I actually lived in Los Angeles at the time when he came to LA, and I was a big hockey fan and played hockey, and that was huge. So but it was more not like you said, not the, what is he doing? What is he accomplishing? Becoming the greatest, at what he did, but more so, how did he get to that? What was the behind that? And so learning a lot about the discipline that he had as a kid, and that really to me spoke wonders. The parenting that he had. So I totally agree with that. Biography is a huge genre that I love. Third question is, what skill or talent would you like to learn?
Yeah, piano, hands down. I've been off and on lessons before in the past. I got to dedicate the time. Right now, as you can see behind me, I got this gym. So I don't have a lot of time. I have kids. I work all the time. I'm putting aside an hour a day to keep my health going, because I think that's the most important thing you can do. But music, life is about balance. And when I was in high school, I was in choir. I realized, how much singing made me happy. Even if I don't have a good voice, it was a great thing to incorporate in my day. And I would love to have more music.
Beautiful. Well, good luck with that. I hope you take it up.
Thank you. Me too.
And our fourth and final question is, what does success mean to you?
Yeah. Wow. Again, I think about this often. It used to mean financial freedom, and in a lot of ways it still does. Even if I, on paper, think I have it. And again, there's always the thing it can be gone tomorrow. So I'm still always fighting for financial freedom. That's what it used to mean to me, because that meant I could spend more time with my kids. So as I go forward now, success, the thing about that goal, though, is that that's a very selfish goal. And it's okay to be selfish, I think, because I think then that's the way you be selfish, help yourself, and then you can help others, as they say. Mm-hmm. So I think now, as I kind of, think about the path of the next, 10, 20 years of my life here, I'd like to inch and take bigger steps towards doing something beyond selfishness.
Awesome goal. I'd love to hear that. And I'm very interested, and I think a lot of our listeners are probably interested to follow along that journey and see where things end up, and hopefully in the right places. And on that, like, where can our listeners find you if they choose to?
Yeah, sure. So they can go to my website, which is rockstackcapital.com. They can email me, Charlie, that's CHARLIE, @rockstackcapital.com. And again, I love helping others. If I can unveil sort of, this what seems like a very unreachable process to financial freedom, so you can live the life you want to live. Others have helped me, and I am always happy to help anyone who wants to put in the work and is trying the best.
Awesome. Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate you taking the time with us today and joining us. And I appreciate our listeners for joining and tuning in once again. So thank you for that. And I just want to leave you off, as always, that the best advice comes only when you ask.
Thank you. Pleasure being here. Thank you.
Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, a connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.